Hello everyone, how's it going? Now, one of the worst mistakes an OCD sufferer can make is waiting until they are recovered to start living life. And that was something that I did, and I see a lot in coaching calls because it's understandable why we do that. Because we often say, I don't want to get interested by this passion because let's be honest, at your worst, you don't have many passions, are you? Because you're so consumed in the feelings, the sensations, the symptoms, the guilt, the panic, all the DPDR, the disassociation, all these kind of feelings, right? So it's understandable as to why we think that. So you're neglecting any kind of interest and hobby. You're turning your nose up on doing anything that you haven't done before, like studying something, studying a topic, learning something, maybe playing an instrument, doing a sport, whatever it may be. And it's easy to say no to that because you'll say, I'll do that once I'm recovered. And it's the same with maybe a career. You know what? I'll try and change jobs, or I'll try and get a job once I'm recovered. That's a very serious mistake to make because the trouble is that will lead to you just waiting almost, it can be a lifetime until you start living. I know people, for example, that come into coaching calls where they've given up their job or given up what they were doing and just pretty much housebound until they recover. And then once they recover, they'll then start living life again. Wrong. X, big mistake, wrong. Okay, because what we need to be doing is living life not only regardless of OCD, but actually doing more, going the extra mile. Okay, if you're serious about getting better, you don't just focus on recovery and that's it. You look at all the things you want to do in your life, you start setting goals, you start looking at interests, passions of yours, hobbies of yours. Look at career paths, look at career goals. Maybe if you're single, you start dating. Maybe if you're in a relationship, you start talking about future plans or whatever it may be. The worst thing you can do is put your life on hold whilst you get better, because then your life suddenly becomes to a shuddering halt because you're like, oh shit, I'm triggered, cancel the plans, I'm triggered. And you just sat there going, I'm just waiting for the trigger to go and then I'll carry on. No, because then you'll be waiting your whole life like that, all right? So you've got to build that momentum by carrying on with your life and introduce recovery as part of your life as you're taking the steps in your life. Whatever you wish to do with career, relationships, whatever you wish to do, it's your life. But you've got to introduce recovery work into that rather than put everything else on the back burner and say recovery is everything. Recovery is a huge priority. It needs to be a huge priority, 100%, definitely, it does. But it doesn't mean you just sacrifice everything else. It doesn't mean you just go, forget me career, forget the exams, forget the subject that I'm studying, forget the degree that I'm after, forget all that, I need to recover. You won't. If you're sat at home, staring at a wall, feeling sorry for yourself, trying to recover, your chances of recovery, zero, slim, nothing at all, okay? No chance, because you've got to live life. You've got to have that structure in place. You've got to set the foundations of a healthy life structure, because you've got OCD on top. If you've got a very poor life structure, if you've got a very shit routine, if you've just got a schedule and there's no structure to it, and you're just sort of lazing around, moping around, not really doing anything, just living in a procrastinating, demotivated world, it's going to be very difficult to get better, because it's going to take some serious grit and determination just to get things done, get them done quick, even with OCD there. Okay? So, yes, it needs to be prioritized, same as the books on our reading list, same as cutting compulsions, same as disputing, but don't put life off to recover, okay? Now, this is where people go wrong. I just want to expand on what I'm talking about here. So, people tend to think the misconception of OCD recovery is that one day you just work out whether it's real or not, and then you get on with your life and go back to how you were. Well, no, that's not true. Okay, you don't just suddenly work it out. You don't just suddenly get an answer. You don't just suddenly get certainty on something and then happy days, you're free from anxiety. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all. With unconditional acceptance, which is what we learn, what we teach here, and rational thinking and breaking down fears, chipping away at worst case scenario, seeing things in a much more rational manner rather than black and white, rigid manner, catastrophic way of thinking, you then start accepting yourself, even if it were real. Okay? So you don't wake up one day and go, oh, I've got clarity, I've got certainty that it definitely isn't real. Happy days, I can now go and live. That's not recovery. That's an illusion. If you ever feel like that's an illusion, because the next day it'll find something else, then something else, then something else. Okay, you'll never get that. OCD will keep moving the goalposts there. If you're trying to chase whether it's real or not, you could be doing that your whole life. Okay, even if OCD backs down a bit because you get some kind of certainty on something, maybe somebody told you, oh no, you definitely didn't do anything wrong. Oh no, you're just your thought. It's just OCD thought, don't worry. It's like when I first got not diagnosed, but once I first understood what OCD was, I was like, oh, okay, great. I know what's going on. And I did have that relief, but then OCD just switched up to prove why it wasn't OCD. And like to prove why this one was real, why this one was the exception, why this one was different to the last one, right? So you can't just suddenly get that certainty. It's an illusion because it will just find something else. The whole point of what it's doing, it's finding that thing that feels more real than the previous one, right? You would not be watching me talk now if it didn't feel real. You would not be coming in for one-to-one calls if it didn't feel real. You wouldn't be even know what OCD was if it didn't feel real. That's the disorder that it is. That's how it operates. Okay? So recovery is the absence of chronic guilt and chronic anxiety, and the intrusive thoughts have lost their intrusiveness, and the frequency is very, very minimal. It's the same with somebody without OCD. Okay? You get thoughts. You don't cut your brain out and go, right, cut my brain out. There's me no thoughts brain. Back in, happy days, I'm a robot. No, okay, you still get thoughts, you still get feelings, you still get emotions, right? You're not becoming a robot, right? But it's nowhere near the extreme. The emotions are much more regulated. You're not going from completely high to completely rock bottom low. Okay, it doesn't work like that. And that comes with perspective shifts, gratitude, changing our ways of viewing things, our outlooks on things, and so on. Compassion for ourselves, and so on. So you've got to view it like that. So people, if you're thinking that, okay, I need to get to a place where if I work this out and I know that it isn't real and I know it's just OCD, then I can go back to my life. Wrong, mistaken, very wrong. Okay, that's a serious error, because you can't be putting life off whilst you work it out. You have got to roll with not knowing. You've got to live and embrace the uncertainty. You've got to change your perspective on the unknown of not knowing and the uncertainty. Okay? And you don't just suddenly work out one day. That doesn't happen. Anybody telling you in a Reddit forum, anybody telling you that they've recovered from OCD by just working it out, they haven't. It's not possible. It's truly not possible, because even if they had some sense of relief from working it out, the illusion of working it out, it will just lay dormant, and then it'd be ready to pounce to find something else. And this is what can happen. Many people that I coach, for example, have maybe been somewhere, I don't know, 20 years ago, got some help, and it seemed to help them get out of the sort of the spiral they were in, and then thought they were recovered, and then boom, it just latched to something else. And it can do that very quickly, all of a sudden as well, because it tends to lay dormant until we fully get under it. We fully get under out of a big perspective shift, a life overhaul, how we view things. You're changing the internal framework so OCD cannot thrive. Okay, there is no way for OCD for it to latch here, because there is unconditional acceptance. There's very flexible thinking. There is no catastrophic thinking going on. There are no compulsions being done. There are no avoidance behaviors. There are no subtle self-reassurance, no subtle confessing. Okay, I have to be aware that I have OCD, but I can't tell that I've even got it. We often say it's like sobriety, where you know you got to be aware you got it. Same as somebody who's been sober from alcohol for 30 years has to be very aware that if they went back into that old ways of drinking again just because their mates drink, just because they fancied a glass of wine, they could open the door, not always, but they could open the door most likely to a relapse, to a spiral. Same with me. If I started going back to my old, very rigid, very extreme, irrational, black and white way of thinking, and just super rigid, writing myself off, no acceptance at all, very low frustration tolerance, believed in like undeservedness and the unfairness and just the overgeneralized way of thinking, as you'll cover it in the first book on our reading list, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Misery by Anything, Yes, Anything, that's by Albert Ellis, because that goes into thinking and how we get ourselves into trouble and emotional disturbance with our thinking. If I went back to that way, I am leaving the door wide open for OCD to come surging back in, to come steaming back in, to come charging back in. If I started avoiding things very subtly, if I started putting things off, if I started checking things, the internal check-in, the internal working things out, if I didn't just roll with uncertainty, then I'd soon be gripped back in very, very quickly. Okay, so it's just becoming aware of how the cycle's operating and knowing that you can't just stop life for OCD to recover. You can't just stop your life and wait to recover from OCD. That isn't going to work, okay? So what you've got to start doing is bringing it for the ride, letting it be there, carry on living your life no matter what. Yes, you introduce it to your day-to-day life, so you prioritize the work. 100%, definitely. Of course, you need to have that structure and routine in place where your recovery work's a huge priority of yours. But don't put everything on hold until you recover. That's important, okay? Because that often stems from a misconception that recovery just happens like a fix and you get back to how you were. It doesn't happen like that. It's a complete change in perspectives, behaviours, how you view things to get to that healthier, happier, more rational version of yourself. Because otherwise, it's just, come on then, when are you going to recover? Come on, I'm waiting, come on, where's it going to go? It doesn't work like that. Okay, it's going to take time, it's going to take patience, it's going to take perseverance and consistency. You can get there. There is hope. It's not easy at all. Like you don't need persuading. I don't need persuading. None of us here need persuading how difficult it is. But you've got to know that it's going to take time to break it down, to start chipping away. Like it's peeling layers off an onion, as Rob says, and that's what it's like. It's going to take time. It's not going to be a straightforward, quick fix. And there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be lots of emotions increasing. There's going to be lots of anxiety here and there, sudden anxiety with a fear of fear, increase in symptoms. That's what's going to happen, okay? But you've got to try and view it as a journey and a process rather than a sudden quick fix, an overnight fix. It's going to happen like that. It doesn't work like that, okay? So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you are interested in one-to-one coaching calls, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com to get in touch. And we will book you in as soon as we can. Take care, guys, and I'll speak again. Bye-bye.